broken future, shattered dreams, end of times ain't what it seems.
Hello, friends. This is Sam Cheney reporting for Weaponized News today, August 24th, 2026. Thank you for joining us on this Monday edition of Weaponized News. Few people coming online right now, I see there. Shout out to everybody joining. I'll wait to make some administrative announcements. All right, what do we got today? Quite a bit. New sanctions announced against Iran. Operation Economic Outcast. We're going to take a look at that, the ins and outs of Iran war here on day 177. We had bread and circuses over the weekend. Formula One race there in DC. We'll take a look at that. This provocateur, Jake Lang, trying to start a race riot in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We'll take a look at those reports. Man dressed in Spider-Man outfit punches him in the face amid a riot. Crazy stuff there. The ins and outs of Iran war, day 177. We have a bunch of surveillance state news, technocracy news, scientific dictatorship, the greater North America. Bunch of that news for you today. We got a little bit of Epstein news here today, a bunch of economic news, geopolitical news, Russia-Ukraine war news, the demolition of Lebanon, ethnic cleansing, and genocide continues there. Also in Gaza, the genocide continues, and they're cranking up action in the occupied West Bank as per usual. All of that and much more on this Monday edition of Weaponized News. All right, let's get to this day in history. On this day in our history of August 24th, we go back to the year 410. 410 on this day, Rome is overrun by Visigoths under Alaric I for the first time in nearly 800 years, seen as the fall of the Western Roman Empire on this day, 410. And then we fast way forward in history to the year 1349 on this day, the Black Death Massacre. 6,000 aardvarks blamed for spreading the bubonic plague are killed in Mazen Electorate of Mazen as part of a wave of pogroms across West Europe. Well, it looks like they failed once again there in their efforts to rid us of the Black Death. On this day in 1456, we saw the printing of the Gutenberg Bible is completed. 1789, on this day, part of the French Revolution, the National Assembly of France proclaims freedom of speech. On this day, 1814, British forces capture Washington, D.C. during the War of 1812 and destroy many landmarks. 1857, on this day, the Panic of 1857 begins, setting off one of the most severe economic crises in U.S. history. 1891 on this day, Thomas Edison patents the motion picture camera. 1936, on this day, FBI spies on fascists and communists. Then U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt gives the FBI the authority to gather intelligence on fascist or communist groups. 1940, on this day, German Luftwaffe bombs London, part of World War II. quite horrific there. 1954 on this day, then U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower signs the Communist Control Act outlawing the Communist Party at the height of McCarthyism. On this day, 1989, Pete Rose, famous baseball player, suspended from Major League Baseball for life due to gambling. Now gambling's everywhere. Pete Rose was just ahead of his time. On this day in 1991, Mikhail Gorbachev resigns as head of the USSR Communist Party. Also, 1991 on this day, Ukraine declares independence from the Soviet Union. On this day in 2023, former president at that time, Donald Trump, surrenders to Fulton County Jail to be arrested on charges stemming from his attempts to alter the 2020 Georgia election and gets the now infamous Trump mugshot. On this day in our civil liberties history, we go back first to the year 1936. On this day, we mentioned it briefly, a little more details here. On this day in 1936, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of America, authorizes FBI to resume political spying in a meeting at the White House with J. Edgar Hoover. On this day, Franklin Roosevelt authorizes the FBI to renew intelligence gathering on domestic political groups. The authorization set in motion 36 years of political spying on Americans by Bureau Director J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. The only surviving document about the meeting is a memo by J. Edgar Hoover, and it is not entirely clear whether it accurately reflects President Roosevelt's actual instructions. Political spying by the Bureau of Investigation, as it was known then, had begun during World War I, but was ended by Attorney General Harlan Fiske Stone on May 13, 1924. Hoover complied with this order and other reforms ordered by Stone for 12 years. The size of the Bureau shrank, personnel standards rose, and the Bureau maintained a relatively low visibility. That began to change when Roosevelt became president and Hoover embarked on an aggressive publicity campaign promoting both the Bureau and himself. Given a green light by FDR, Hoover went on to conduct the greatest violations of civil liberties by any single person in American history. Two of the Bureau's most notorious activities under Hoover were the COINTELPRO program, approved on March 8, 1956, and its effort to neutralize Dr. Martin Luther King, which was launched on December 23, 1963. The full extent of Hoover's violations of Americans' rights was not fully known until the Senate Church Committee investigation in 1975 and 1976. The COINTELPRO program was exposed when a group of anti-Vietnam War activists burglarized the FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania on March 8, 1971, and stole over 1,000 documents, which they released to the press. On this day in 1945, spying on Americans, Project Shamrock begins. Project Shamrock began on this day, involved government monitoring telegraphic messages entering and leaving the United States. At its height, the program was monitoring 150,000 messages a month. Interestingly, the program was begun before the creation of either the CIA or the NSA. Shamrock was exposed in 1975 and terminated by NSA Director Lou Allen that year. Government spying on American citizens began during World War I. including burglarizing the offices of the National Civil Liberties Bureau, and continued intermittently during the early 1920s. It then resumed in earnest in 1936 when it was authorized by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as we covered there. And on this day, 1972, hippies in the Bureau, FBI ordered to allow agents to have long hair. A U.S. Civil Service Commission on this day ordered the FBI to reinstate fingerprint technician Joseph Ham, who had been fired for having long hair. Longtime FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, crossdresser, excuse me, who died on May 2nd, 1972, had been a legendary fanatic about grooming and wearing women's clothes, excuse me, and had permitted only very few short haircuts. As director of the FBI from 1924 to 1972, J. Edgar Hoover established what is arguably the worst record of violations of civil liberties of any public official in American history. Go America, law and order. Back to blue, bro. Jake Lang, here's our segue to the news. Jake Lang arrested for causing a riot in Minneapolis, Minnesota, while holding a sign saying Jake Lang loves black people but hates N-words. Not provocative at all. Obviously, a paid provocateur here, Jake Lang. Here's some of that report on the riot over the weekend in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Wild scenes there out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Here's another shot. Here's another shot of it. A little bit more footage from the provocative action by Jake Lang trying to start a race war in this country. Wild scenes there over the weekend. Jake Lang trying to incite a race riot. Well, he did incite it, trying to incite a race war there. Bread and circuses. It's go time. Trump waves the green flag in D.C. over the weekend for the Freedom 250 Grand Prix. He's turned it into a MAGA event, further bastardizing America's 250th anniversary, co-opting it via MAGA, alienating much of the rest of the country here now. Truly disgusting, despicable behavior by your corporate fascist government led by President Trump.
We have green. We are racing in the Freedom 250.
Yeah, we can't afford groceries out here, bro. And you're running race cars around D.C. There's propaganda out of the White House earlier today. Man of the people, President Trump, the sports president. Look over there. Well, you can't afford fuel for your vehicle. There's a sports game going on.
President Trump, a huge sports fan.
Please welcome Donald J. Trump.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Ladies and gentlemen from the South Lawn.
I'd love to have your job someday.
The President of the United States on the field.
The first sitting second U.S. president to attend a Super Bowl game live.
What an entrance by the President of the United States.
There's a new spectator in the House, the President of the United States.
Always attending when he can.
So a whole lot of circus, not much bread coming out of this White House now. But hell, they did do a big military flyover. Remember when cognitively impaired Joe Biden defiled the White House with transgender flags? That's what the Trump White House had to say. Here's their answer, they say.
And the home of the
Yay, another illegal foreign war of aggression. Yay, go America. On to the Iran war now. Iran is completely collapsing, Trump posts earlier today. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Operation Economic Outlast.
Today, at President Trump's direction, the United States Treasury has begun Operation Economic Outcast, an unprecedented campaign against the Islamic Republic of Iran and its enablers. In the Second World War, D-Day marked the historic beginning of a campaign with our allies to target and drive the enemy from its positions, including those in third countries. Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone.
Thankfully, Shadow President of America, Milei Bibi Netanyahu's behind this effort. Glad we have his blessing. You can see right here, Prime Minister of Aardvarkland, Netanyahu congratulates Trump and Bessent on the largest sanctions against the Iran regime, the latest sanctions. You justly exact a steep price for the cruel dictatorship and from those who assist its continued aggression. We attack them, but that's beside the point now, isn't it? Iran central bank chief calls currency collapse, quote, temporary as rial hits record low. Iran's currency slid to a record low of about 2.02 million to the US dollar on Monday as Washington prepared to unveil what it called an economic D-Day of sanctions. Central bank governor Abdul Nasser Hemedi insisted that depreciation was, quote, temporary, meaning they fluctuate. In remarks aired on Iranian state television, the rial has lost nearly 10% of its value in 2 weeks, on top of a plunge early in the war. He blamed American political propaganda for much of Iran's economic pain and said he was sure the situation will improve and the problems will be resolved. And you can't trust a central banker, this character. I don't know who you can trust. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent announces any country that helps Iran will be removed from the U.S. dollar system any country that supports Iran in any form globally, including China, should now be prepared to face economic sanctions, and countries that, quote, stick with Iran will be isolated alongside them, as Trump is now making phone calls to world leaders to cut economic ties with Iran. Bissett added that the new U.S. economic campaign targeting Iran has been officially dubbed, again, Operation Economic Epstein? No. Operation Epstein Outcast? No. Operation Economic Outcast, with the United States enforcing a, quote, zero leakage approach to Iran sanctions. The dollar's now been fully weaponized against Iran and its allies. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Baghdadi, this dude, so you know who's saying this stuff, he said earlier today, renewed U.S. sanctions will fail because Washington is repeating policies that have already proven ineffective while deliberately imposing costs on ordinary Iranians. He added, Tehran will use, quote, all available multilateral capacities to resist U.S. economic warfare, warning that secondary sanctions and pressure on other countries to restrict trade with Iran imperil Iranian national sovereignty. He added that Washington's excessive demands and law breaking have increasingly drawn objections even from close U.S. allies without specifying the incident or countries he was referring to. Senior Iranian source, according to Iranian state television, said Trump's economic pressure plan, coinciding with the reopening of financial markets and the presence of a Pakistani mediator in Iran, is another repeated example of Trump's media and psychological operations, and nothing new is expected to happen on the ground. It's all psyops. Iran saying they're running on us through U.S. Treasury Department. Operation Epstein Outcast, or excuse me, Operation Economic Outcast. More from Baghdadi says, we have long been chess players. In recent years, we have become poker players as well. And for some time now, we have been playing a combination of the two. I thought it was 5D chess. Iran's playing chess and poker. They're saying, where are you at? One up them. They're anonymous riddlers on the internet. Come on. The Hormuz letter reports Iran directly rejects the Trump-backed peace deal proposal conveyed via Pakistan to Iran a few hours ago, and also rejects restarting negotiations with the United States, according to Press TV. Iran's Ghalibaf says the obligations of the parties in the MOU are clear, and it was America that broke them, coming today after Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir visited Tehran to relay the Trump administration's proposal for Iran to return to negotiations. We're in a Persian standoff still here now. It is hitting Iran, apparently, according to these reports. Well, the rial's way down there now against the dollar. Widespread gasoline shortages are hitting Iranian cities, including Tehran, Mashhad, and Kerman. Videos show long queues at gas stations across multiple cities, with stations closing overnight due to no fuel. A trial of sharply higher pricing in Kerman was quickly suspended over fears of public backlash. The government is weighing daily supply caps, tighter vehicle quotas, or individual fuel rationing. Again, this is an engineered energy crisis on multiple fronts. Iran's feeling it now. China warns U.S. sanctions on Iran's trade partners will, quote, only intensify tensions. China said it would take, quote, necessary measures to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests as Washington readies sanctions expected to target Iran's trading partners. Foreign Minister spokesman Lin Jian said earlier today, according to the state-run Global Times, he warned that, quote, sanctions and pressure do not help solve problems. They only intensify tensions. The stakes fall hardest on Beijing. China is by far the largest buyer of Iranian oil, making it the prime target of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's threat to penalize any country that keeps trading with Tehran. Bessent, who has vowed the toughest sanctions in history and told CNBC that China should get with the program, is set to detail the measures at a briefing. Yeah, we covered that. China urged all sides to return to the correct track of dialogue. What are we going to do about these Iranians, man? They're threatening to kill our shadow president's son. It's reported there now. Milei Bibi Netanyahu says Iran tried to assassinate one of my sons. I know, very tragically. Why would they be so damn evil there out of Iran? I don't know. We whacked their supreme leader, a bunch of his family members, like over 50 of their top dudes. Could be true. Bibi lies like constantly, so take that threat with a grain of salt. But it's not that far of a reach, honestly. Okay, on to scientific dictatorship news. We'll have more Iran and West Asia news in the second half of the program. On to scientific dictatorship, technocracy, the Greater North America project here. They're building out.
That is why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America.
Here's Flock CEO on the War Channel, Fox News.
I value my privacy. My family values their privacy. My employees value their privacy. But what we're talking about is safety as well. And so I think when people talk about just one of these, privacy or safety, they're prioritizing the wrong thing. And what we have to prioritize as a country is compromise. How do we have our safety and how do we balance privacy? And so when I think about legislation that calls for an outright ban, that's like banning vehicles. That would never have made sense. Instead, what we did is we introduced laws against drunk driving. We introduced laws around seatbelts, laws around airbags.
Whenever they want to take away our freedoms, it's always about for our safety. And this technology extends far beyond license plate readers at this point. Flock Safety is putting up cameras in parks, on trails, and playgrounds. And these are AI cameras that track people, no longer just license plate readers. This is about the mass surveillance network being established in America, and nobody's falling for it. If we look at the comments here, they will always use safety as an excuse when they want to infringe on your privacy. Rip them down. Never give up liberty for the sake of safety. Benjamin Franklin said, those who give up liberty for safety deserve neither. So everyone agrees that this is the wrong move. We do not want to give up our privacy for the sake of safety.
Yeah, well, don't get in trouble fighting this thing. All right. And yeah, obviously, they're tyrannical maniacs. Here's another report. U.S. Attorney John Scaroni III accidentally admits that flock cameras are really for mass surveillance of people walking around in the public. These are tyrannical criminals. The government is an organized crime syndicate, as we continue to report here at Weaponized News. They know they're criminals.
If you don't have flock cameras, how are law enforcement going to detect and see somebody
walking around possibly looking to blow up your state capitol or commit terrorist acts. If
that what he's referring to there was staged up by the FBI. We covered it last week. These people are the criminals.
If you're not doing anything wrong and you're not committing any crimes, what do you care? I mean, you feel safer.
What a load of shit.
The idea that because you were able to use it effectively one time, my civil rights and my privacy are violated daily, that is a balancing act that I don't think a lot of people are comfortable with right now.
Yeah, that's the other side of the argument, but popular backlash has been growing against those cameras. A sheriff's deputy outside of New Orleans fired for using license plate reader cameras to track his ex-fiancée. And that's just one in a string of cases where officers have been caught allegedly misusing the cameras. And while a growing list of cities have moved to remove the networks, there's also a growing list of places where vandals have damaged or removed those cameras themselves.
If you want to know who's speaking, this is him. He is a first assistant U.S. attorney, and he is the U.S. attorney for the District of New York. So what's really interesting is in this video right here, here he is. You heard him say, how are we going to catch criminals walking around on the streets that could be blowing up the Capitol or whatever other excuses he gave?
The FBI staged up that attack. So they staged up attacks. Oh my gosh, the terrorists are getting us. We need to do colonoscopies on you 24/7, 365 with a camera up your rear end. They're the criminals. This guy right here, this is the criminal. Don't threaten them. Don't destroy their property. Residents in Pasadena, California. By the way, that report's from Wall Street Apes on the X. This report as well. Residents in Pasadena, California came out to City Hall to oppose flock cameras. Let's watch this report.
Frustration over flock cameras in Pasadena. Concerned neighbors say they want the city to get rid of the surveillance system.
Today, privacy safety groups lined the steps of City Hall to voice their concerns, and Eyewitness News reporter Jericho Tran is there live with what they had to say. Jericho?
Yeah, well, those neighbors were originally supposed to speak at a City Hall meeting today, but that meeting was postponed due to lack of quorum, which essentially just means there were not enough city councilors here to actually hold that meeting. So they took to the steps of City Hall instead. They're worried about these automatic license plate readers, the information that they're gathering, how they're gathering that information, especially as the city looks to expand the use of those cameras. It's kind of winding down right now behind me, so I want to give you a look at what it was like when that rally was in full swing. Take a look right there. Flock cameras have been used in Pasadena since 2023. They are automatic license plate readers. There are about 70 cameras across 20 major city intersections with a focus on the Northwest Pasadena and Rose Bowl areas. The city says they set up the cameras about 3 years ago because of the terrorism concerns surrounding the Rose Bowl. Now they're looking to expand the use of those cameras. But
Terrorism. The FBI is cooking up these terror plots to bring in the scientific dictatorship. Same routine, man. Same routine. Don't buy their lies. Anthropic's best AI model struggles to attract users as cheap tools thrive, according to a report from the Financial Times. The AI reckoning is coming. It's just a matter of timing. Again, Michael Burry of the famous from The Big Short, 2028 financial crisis. The man who predicted the 2008 financial crash believes he spotted NVIDIA's flaw. Wall Street is counting on NVIDIA to keep the AI party going. Report out of Wall Street Journal. And then report out of Politico. Data centers. Oh, shit moment. Here's that. Just write out, oh, shit. I mean, come on. Are we growing ups here or what? But they had to bleep it out there. Hyperscalers have lined up $2.6 trillion of future spending, according to Bloomberg. It's just so fraudulent, so ridiculous. You can see right here. Google doing the most there, or Alphabet, excuse me. giant build out, conceptual purchase commitments. It's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Okay, here's a mashup of all those stories. I'm using AI here. I threw it into AI. I said, give me the top 10 points out of all this. Let's make some sense out of this. NVIDIA as the linchpin of market confidence. Wall Street is treating NVIDIA's earnings call as a make or break event for the AI narrative and the broader tech-heavy stock market. The company has beaten expectations for 14 consecutive quarters since the chat GPT driven boom began. A miss or even cautious guidance is expected to send shockwaves through the stock market. Circular vendor financing at the core of demand. As we continue to report, it's a circle jerk of fraud here now. NVIDIA has moved beyond simply selling chips. It has helped structure large financing platforms with Apollo, BlackRock, Blackstone, Brookfield, Goldman Sachs, KKR, and others, targeting more than $500 billion in capital, offered residual value support on portions of deals, taken stakes in power arrangers, and invested directly in AI labs and mobile developers. Critics argue this creates self-reinforcing loops in which NVIDIA capital helps generate the demand for NVIDIA chips. Softening fundamentals among key customers. OpenAI recently reported only 18% revenue growth in a recent quarter, while losses deepened. This contrast between still explosive chip demand and more muted application layer monetization is cited as one of the early cracks appearing in the AI narrative. The AI reckoning is framed as a timing question, not an if, but when. Let's see. Yeah, bubble, not if the bubble will burst, but when. The only uncertainty is when. Cracks in NVIDIA's story and the heavy reliance on circular financing are presented as visible precursors. Data centers have become a bipartisan political liability. What was once mainly progressive criticism has broadened. Republican and Democrat governors and candidates have embraced pauses, local approval requirements, audits, and subsidy rollbacks. Examples include Texas Governor Greg Abbott pause and audits of data center construction projects in Texas. Same goes for Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, his executive order requiring community consent, and a Michigan moratorium proposal is on the table. Community costs are driving the backlash. Residents and local officials cite higher power bills, water supply pressure, visual and noise blight, and the perception that tax incentives primarily benefit large tech firms rather than the host communities. This has flipped earlier states' efforts to court hyperscaler investment. Subsidy and tax break rollbacks are accelerating. 8 states enacted legislation in 2026 rolling back data center incentives. 17 others were considering similar steps. Virginia introduced a consumption tax on data center energy use. Political campaigns have successfully used make data centers pay their way messaging. Industry acknowledgement of an oh shit moment. Some AI and infrastructure executives privately described the political shift as an oh shit moment that could escalate into prolonged problems through the 2028 election cycle. Others are still dismissive. The more concerned voices argue the latter group is underestimating the risk. Meta's $1 billion community fund and OpenAI's comments that we have real work to do signal early attempts at damage control. Power and grid constraints are now development risks, not just engineering challenges. Capital alone is no longer sufficient to clear sites. Community resistance has become a material risk alongside multi-year interconnection waits and regional power shortfalls. This compounds the financing complexity already visible at the chip layer. Broader implications for the investment cycle. The combination of heavy dependence on one company's results and capital market engineering and growing physical political friction on data center deployment creates a two-front pressure on the AI build-out. Yeah, as we continue to report, and more people are becoming aware, as it's self-evident, the abuse coming down from these data centers, from scientific dictatorship, from technocracy, from the greater North American project. Alibaba's BAB, $BAB, they're where are they on the New York Stock Exchange? Anyway, open weight models have accumulated more than 3 billion global downloads in the past 6 months, eclipsing Meta, Alphabet, and domestic peers to become the world's #1 artificial intelligence model, per report out of Bloomberg. AI math doesn't make sense. Profits are currently being funded by investors rather than earned from customers, Apollo Slock said. A drone killed 3 Ukrainians. It was guided entirely by artificial intelligence. So we had a report, a month and a half ago, Ukraine used an AI drone, they said in that report, fully autonomous, to kill a Russian. Now they're saying Russia's using the same fully autonomous technology to kill Ukrainians. It's quite horrific. Stop the war. They talk about in this article out of the failing New York Times, they talk about, let's see here, autonomous AI systems can be trained on thousands of images. Let's see, where did they say here? Well, they say if it's given a number of different options to pick, and it was attacking a Ukrainian gas station, and it targeted propane tanks there, and it's said to have made the decision autonomously, no humans involved, blew up a propane gas tank and killed 3 Ukrainians there in the process. And they're saying in this failing New York Times article that it was fully autonomous at the time. It made the decision to kamikaze suicide bomb into that propane tank. Is Skynet live yet? Is it fully self-aware? We're getting there. Well, we are getting there for sure. Here's some crazy stories. I threw it all in the Epstein pervert section of the show here. A Texas attorney, Stephen Tyler Swain, was arrested with bestiality involving the family's dog.
And we're back with a case that's trending online today and tonight. A Houston lawyer facing serious bestiality charges. And of course, he was arrested only a couple of months ago, but it is trending again. 56-year-old Stephen Swain was arrested after his wife looked at surveillance footage from last November. According to court documents, the new cameras caught him in a disturbing act with the family dog named Shipley. The alleged incident reportedly involved licking.
The hell? Did the dog bite his nose? Some sick freaks out there, man. Let me tell you. Some more. What's going on in South Carolina? Several child abuse cases have been filed in South Carolina in recent months, to include Kevin Phillip Hedgepeth, mayor of Hanahan, who targeted, recruited, and sexually exploited children via Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Telegram, and X while posing as a minor. This case is not isolated. The U.S. Attorney's Office for South Carolina has brought several similar cases in recent months, including a former Rock Hill teacher indicted in August for possession and distribution of child sex abuse material, a former Columbia teacher indicted in July on charges of attempted production, distribution, and possession of the same, and a former Charleston County magistrate who pleaded guilty in July to possessing and distributing similar material. Here's that. Man. Former Hanahan City Councilman indicted on sex trafficking and child abuse charges. NFL, San Francisco 49ers professional football team owner Jed York is arrested in Ohio on a prostitution-related case. There, it's alleged he was soliciting prostitution in an East Palestine, Ohio trailer park. It's like, what the hell, man? What's wrong with these guys? And then here's some satire before we get back into the hard news.
It's smiles on Sunset Boulevard, living back, playing every card.
Geez, there was a lot there. As for satire purpose only, obviously. DOJ signals it will appeal ruling requiring removal of some redactions in Epstein files. Report out of the Hill, the Department of Justice said earlier today it plans to appeal a ruling requiring the department to unredact various documents from the Epstein files in a suit brought by attorney and independent journalist Katie Fang. The preliminary injunction entered in June orders redactions to be removed in key documents of interest in the files, including at least 8 email exchanges with Epstein regarding a torture video and sexual activity with young women, including minors, as well as interviews with a woman who said she was abused by President Trump as a minor. As the Todd Blanche Department of Justice Epstein files cover-up continues. As it was, well, they're appealing this decision. I guess it was ruled by old Judge Sullivan, as reported last week, to be completed, the unredacting of the redactions to be completed by Thursday of this week, and now it's under appeal. The notice of appeal does not get into any of the DOJ's legal arguments and narrowly complies with a 60-day ruling to appeal U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan's order. And so they're slow playing this whole thing, dragging their feet. They're going to drag their feet all the way till Trump's out of office here on all of this. It appears we'll keep covering it as the story continues to develop, but don't forget ever that Trump's Department of Justice is covering up the Epstein files with redactions, holding back data, and doxing the victims. Tragically enough, happy merchant creator and political cartoonist Nick Bogas has passed away at the age of 71. Of course, everybody knows the happy merchant meme there. He's just a happy merchant there, you see. So the inventor of that meme is no longer with us. Rest in peace there. U.S. school kids' first hours every day in headphones on computer, brags WWE Secretary of Department of Education Linda McMahon. There you go. With a big elbow of the top ropes on your children's educational future.
The first couple of hours every day, students really have on headphones. They're in front of their computers. They're getting their subjects fed to them with all teachers monitoring what they're doing. And the beauty of that is that a student almost has a one-on-one tutor. So the teacher can monitor to see if a child is a bit behind and repeat information for them. If a child is really excelling, then their programs get sped up a bit. So it's a great tool, to have in this.
That's their solution for the failing education system. Stick your kid in front of an AI screen. But they don't give a damn about your kid, you or I, as we know. How big tech captured American schools? Yeah. Another report out of the failing New York Times here. How big tech captured American schools. Companies like Google and Microsoft have used their money, their might, and their massive reach to influence nearly every step of education, of the educational supply chain. Google, Microsoft, and other tech giants have leveraged money, influence, and scale to shape nearly every part of the U.S. K through 12 educational supply chain, from devices and software to teacher training and student materials. Microsoft 2025 AI workshop. Roughly 200 teachers attended a session in Manhattan focused on Copilot. They practiced using the chatbot for parent communications and lesson planning, and watched a Minecraft educational AI video aimed at introducing the technology to young children. Widespread corporate training models. Workshops funded or led by Amazon, Apple, Meta, OpenAI, and Alphabet, Google, indicating a common industry playbook rather than isolated efforts. Pharmaceutical industry parallels. These sessions closely resemble drug company seminars for physicians that promote brand name products. Excerpt quote from one of these presentations: industry funds what helps industry. Marketing and narrative control. Workshops keep educators updated on tools, but often serve as marketing or indoctrination, giving administrators, teachers, and students a sanitized view of industry practices and product risks. Double standard on corporate influence. Society would likely reject oil companies writing climate curricula or opioid makers training biology teachers, yet schools have accepted comparable involvement from big tech while limiting questioning. They're building the scientific dictatorship. You shut up about it. Longer pattern of classroom capture. The AI push builds on more than a decade of tech companies embedding devices and software, especially Chromebooks and Google education apps, to influence how students learn and to foster brand loyalty. Dominant device footprint. Chromebooks have become the leading classroom laptop in the United States. Recent figures place them at roughly 59% of mobile devices shipped to schools, illustrating the scale of platform lock-in. Shift to AI tools. Companies are now racing to introduce chatbots and related AI products into classrooms, framing them as essential for modern education in the same way earlier tools were promoted. Emerging resistance. A growing number of parents, teachers, and researchers are questioning the rapid adoption of unproven AI tools and the cumulative effects of years of school issued devices, signaling potential limits to further capture. Just take the brain chip at birth, bro, and then that solves the problem, right? Sure. To encourage families to have more children due to falling birth rates, Singapore will provide $55,150 in direct financial support for each child under 17 years old, which includes a $7,900 gift at birth and a $7,900 payment to support their further educational needs. Pay it all to Apple, right? Or to Alphabet, excuse me, Apple. Pay it all to Alphabet. That's a report out of the Financial Times. All right, let's take our live commercial break now. Give me that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. All of that's free for you. Go to weaponizednews.com/shop. Get yourself a holograph sticker there, a white background sticker, and the clear sticker. Weaponizednews.com/shop. The link's in the description below this video. We have baseball caps, coffee mugs, t-shirts, all kind of different gear over there. Shot glasses, as some people say. This show may induce heavy bouts of drinking. Weaponizednews.com/shop. Go check out the gear over there. If you don't want to patron the store, we take donations as well. Buy me a coffee, Bitcoin wallet address, Cash App links, all in the description below this video. Become a paid subscriber at Weaponized News Substack. We give away everything free. Show your support for independent reporting and analysis. Brought to you 5 days a week. Broadcasting live Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern Time. Weaponized News on all your big tech platforms. Become a paid subscriber. Show your support at Weaponized News Substack. We give away everything free there. You'll get the full show. We're streaming there live now. You'll get the full show, summary of the show, and links to almost everything we talk about for documentation and further research purposes. However you may choose to support this broadcast is truly appreciated. All the links in the description below this video. Give me the like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. All that's free for you. All right. Welcome back to the second half of Weaponized News on this Monday, August 24th, 2026 edition, as we're into the economic section of the show now. This Congress has dramatically worsened America's fiscal trajectory from bad to worse here now. Chart out of Bloomberg, you can see this Congress has dramatically worsened America's fiscal trajectory. Federal debt held by the public. Jeez, and it just goes straight up. Like we're going to get to straight vertical probably before here. You know what I mean? It's just, it's insane. It's insane what this Congress is doing to us here now. Canada and U.S. headed for an all-out trade war. CNBC reports. Here's Trump earlier today. Says Canada has been ripping off the United States of America for years. The ridiculously high tariffs on our farmers and farm products has made life impossible for these great American patriots and has long created a $60 billion deficit between our two countries. Not sustainable and not anymore. On January 1st, 2027, tariffs on all cars, trucks, both large and small, automotive parts and steel will be increased to 50%. Build in the United States, and there are zero tariffs. Canada will be treated like a state no longer. On trade and in other ways also, they are among the worst nations in the world to deal with. They feel entitled, and yet we don't need Canada. They need us. They do 95% of their business with the United States. With us, the exact opposite. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Hear me out there, Snow? You Canadians are ripping us off, and we're tired of it. We're tired of it. Oh, let me go back here. I do see, shout out to Mac there. Mac's having some, he's rearranging his housing situation, and he's getting his housing situation sorted out. And condolences, let's say a prayer for Mac. He recently lost his mother, and people are asking, where's Mac in the chat? Well, here he is, and his scheduling doesn't allow for him to join Weaponized News until the 6-hour mark. Shout out to you there, Mac. Thank you for joining us. And again, condolences for losing your mother out there. Everybody send a prayer out there for Mac in this time of grieving for him and his family. Thank you very much, and welcome to the chat on the Rumble or on the YouTube there. Mac, thank you for joining us. Okay, back to the economic reporting here now. Wall Street Journal says the dumbest trade war in history. Talking about Trump and Canada right there, you can see. Yeah, it is the dumbest trade war in history, but anything to deflect attention from Trump's failings now. Trump now says the tariffs on cars, trucks, automotive parts, and steel from Canada will be increased 50% starting January 1st, 2027. Yeah. Ontario's premier, Canada should be ready to cut electricity, critical minerals as trade woes worsen. There, we had some big talk coming out of Doug Ford today. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said earlier today that Ronald Reagan would be, quote, throwing up over President Trump's trade policies and threatened to cut off electricity and critical minerals to the United States as Trump escalated the trade fight. Ford, speaking in an interview with the Associated Press, said Trump has underestimated Canadians' willingness to endure economic pain rather than give in to U.S. economic pressure. Canada has directly warned the United States that it will cut off critical minerals and electricity, including 50% of U.S. aluminum imports, high-grade nickel, uranium, and power to 1.5 million American homes if the trade war with Trump escalates any further. The threat comes after Trump hit Canada with 50% tariffs on roughly $20 billion worth of Canadian goods. We covered all that, the details there. The numbers are stark. Canada supplies 50% of U.S. aluminum imports and is a major source of uranium and nickel. Ontario's electricity powers 1.5 million American homes. Covered those details. Lots of bluster here now on Prime Minister of Ontario, Doug Ford's comments, the back and forth now between him and Trump. Lots of bluster from Doug Ford, who is the Premier of Canadian province of Ontario, but who's better known as the less charismatic, intelligent, and overall unimpressive brother of the late, great Rob Ford. America has been carrying Canada for decades, but no longer. Hear that, Snow? No longer are we going to carry you up there in Canada. The USA will always be far bigger, richer, and stronger than Canada. Without the United States, Canada could not survive. It's where they get all their money, and because of their current bad leadership, primarily Governor Carney and his flunky Ford, they will not be allowed to keep taking advantage of the United States. They're key to survival. Remember, much of the electricity, oil, and gas that Canada gets is transported through the USA. Someone should get these clowns to fall in line, or the consequences for Canada will be far worse. Canada's unemployment rate is now at 10% and rapidly rising. Their businesses are fleecing the United States, and it's all because of their failed policies and inept leadership. The days of ripping off farmers and other businesses are over. Here's Mr. Technocracy, J.D. Vance, Vice President of America, allegedly earlier today.
Canada is a state. Sorry, Freudian slip. That was actually an accident.
It wasn't an accident because it's part of building out Greater North America project. Here's Doug Ford earlier today on this trade war.
I have a lot of real estate on my ass, so he has a lot of room to kiss my ass. So I have a...
There you go. That's where we're at. The high level of intellectual discourse is Doug Ford telling Trump, kiss my ass. President Trump is set to impose a 7.5% tariff on Chinese goods, raising the total tariff on China to 20%, according to Bloomberg. President Trump is reportedly imposing these tariffs over allegations of excess manufacturing capacity before a planned summit with China's President Xi on September 24th. These tariffs will come on top of others imposed during Trump's first term and extended by President Biden. Report out of the Clash report here. Economic war is pushing Iran toward a dangerous crossroads.
$1 now costs 2 million Iranian riyals. Welcome to the front lines of Iran's economic war. Behind that staggering number lies an economy pushed to the absolute brink. With toughest in the history US sanctions and the naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, annual inflation has surged past 66% and basic food prices are up 128%. The state is handing out food coupons worth just $6.40 a month to help families survive. But the real danger is the rift inside Iran's leadership. The president Mesut Pezeshkian admits they are in a full-scale war, acknowledging that ending it now is vital for national survival. The parliament speaker Mohammad Ghalibaf warned, no matter how much military power we have, if people are hungry, we will not endure. The IRGC headliners, however, pushing for full escalation. Security Chief Mohsin Rizai is threatening to block Persian Gulf oil, strike US targets, and cross the nuclear threshold. Washington's strategy is to crash the economy until Tehran surrenders. But as internal pressure mounts and ordinary Iranians face complete financial ruin, Tehran's leadership is reaching a terrifying crossroads. Do they bend at the negotiating table or escalate the war to drag the whole country down?
Are economic sanctions gonna finally work here, causing the Iranian people to overthrow their corrupt government? I don't know. That's the alleged thinking behind all of these economic sanctions. It's not going to hurt their elites, as their elites all have offshore bank accounts in Switzerland and wherever the hell else all around the world, right? It's going to hurt Joe Blow, Iranian. That's who it, and then theoretically, somehow this is going to spur a revolt to overthrow the Khomeini mullah regime there. Hasn't worked so far. Maybe this will work. Maybe this will. I have my doubts. BRICS 2026. New Delhi is set to host the BRICS Think Tank Network for Finance annual conference tomorrow. As part of India's BRICS chairmanship, the conference brings together leading think tanks, institutions, and experts to exchange perspectives on evolving global financial and economic priorities. The deliberations will continue to deeper financial cooperation among BRICS countries, with a focus on development finance, digital finance, and emerging challenges for developing economies, strengthening knowledge-driven engagement across the global South. Here's a little promo video they put out for BRICS 2026 meeting tomorrow. We'll cover that tomorrow, what developments are coming out of that meeting. Putin. Russia President Putin said BRICS countries account not only for a third of the global land mass and half of its population, but also 40% of the global economy. In total, our GDP, counted by purchasing power parity, is over $37 trillion, according to the IMF in 2025. By this indicator, BRICS significantly surpasses many other organizations, including the G7. And so there's Putin bragging up the BRICS there.
Asia.
Putin's bragging up the BRICS, as Russia's also suffering So we're going to push it to the point everybody's the dollar as the world reserve currency is weaponized against the entire world. You see them forming, and they've been working on it for a while now. BRICS. We're pushing countries to have to do something when we say you are no longer allowed to use the dollar. And also, we're going to go ahead and kick you out of the entire Western banking system, essentially, here now, as they've done to Russia. And so these countries are not going to just lay over and die in a ditch. They're figuring out another alternative system, and we're pushing them all toward it. Hell, next thing you know, Canada will be joining BRICS with asshole Trump setting our trade policies. The Set could tap near $1 trillion Treasury general account to fund bond buybacks. Yeah, it's like the snake biting its own tail again. Circle jerk. But now we're at the international level, dollar level here now, with the U.S. Treasury buying our own debt, i.e. quantitative easing style of policy coming out of the Treasury Department. Now, the Treasury could use its general account to help fund purchases of government bonds, according to two senior Treasury officials. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has built up a TGA to around $950 billion currently. The Treasury surprised markets last week by doubling the size of bond buybacks, but the impact on yields was short-lived. We covered that last week. The tweaks and market manipulation, i.e. quantitative easing, i.e. it's all transitory, as Simon would tell us. It's just transitory. Yeah, it's just the economic tools are losing their power here now, as we saw with the market manipulation in the bond market last week. Temporarily, very short-lived, like within 12 hours, the price of the bonds, the interest rate went back up higher than before the market manipulation by the Treasury Department. We saw that sort out last week. Bessent, bond market battle, it's starting to look like his boss's war in Iran, a tangled set of objectives, an underestimated opponent, and an implausible path to victory. And like the conflict in the Middle East, we are all going to suffer. That's a quote out of the Financial Times. Yeah, the entire world is going to suffer as per design. Engineered energy crisis, engineered famine. And they may crash our economy and the world economy along the way in those efforts as well. The cost to service U.S. government debt has climbed to 3.2% of GDP, the highest level since 1991. You can see right here in this chart from Bloomberg. When it starts going almost vertical, yeah, it's time to start worrying. And see right here, we're starting to go almost vertical again. It's not good. Surge in bond yields is a result of Trump's war, German minister says. Well, he needs to be sanctioned and droned, obviously, for his transgressions against the U.S. war machine and tyrant Trump. You can see right there. Germany's 30-year bond yield has surged to its highest since 2011 amid inflation fears tied to the U.S.-Iran conflict, which German Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil blamed on Trump's war in Iran. What did they have? They had was Politico reporting the AI oh shit moment. This is the finance no shit moment coming out of Germany there now. $50,000 from 1990 now needs $130,000 for the same buying power. Official inflation data shows $50,000 from 1990 equals roughly $127,742 in 2026 dollars, more than doubling the income needed for equivalent purchasing power over the past 36 years. Housing amplifies the strain. The prices outpacing general inflation. Median homes at $440,000 and mortgage rates above 6%, pushing monthly payments beyond historical income norms. Existing home sales linger near multi-decade lows at around 4.1 million units forecast for 2026 as affordability tightens and many feel what once meant middle class security now borders on economic hardship. It's the golden age, bro, in Trump's economy here now. There is expected to be an increasing copper shortage. Report out of Bloomberg here now. And also just saying this is going to cause as we continue to report, the price of copper to go up. I hear there's a bunch of copper in all these surveillance systems, just saying, for the junkies out there. I'm pretty sure they don't watch Weaponized News, but just saying. We could see down the line here now. We've seen it in California for the battery-powered car charging stations. That big old thick electric cable has a bunch of copper, and thieves go by and cut those off and salvage the. I guess the economy's getting so bad. Copper is now on borderline considered precious metal. Report out of Unusual Wells, Nancy Pelosi just disclosed up to $3.5 million in new stock trades. Major buys include 15,000 shares of Bloom Energy and 10,000 shares of Intel. She also purchased calls worth up to $5 million and $500,000 in respectively in Bloom Energy and Intel, expiring June 17, 2027. She bought leveraged positions in companies that the government legislates regulations for. They all are doing that, but just focusing, as it's become popular here now, on Nancy Pelosi. Maybe not all, but a lot, okay, there. And so the height of insider trading, when you're actually setting regulation policies and passing laws that affect said industries, you have foreknowledge, front run it, and become a kabillionaire. It's just the face of corruption is marking U.S. Congress here now. Some good news here, not really, but what the hell? We're in financial Armageddon, it seems. Horrible news, actually. More consolidation of the major banks. Wells Fargo and Citigroup have room to buy a big bank. These 5 regional banks fit the bill. Report out of CNBC. Citigroup and Wells Fargo are the only U.S. mega banks with room under 10% national deposit cap to buy a large regional bank, but neither has moved. So they're talking about eyeing these regional banks to further consolidate the banking industry here now. So we'll keep an eye on that as it develops. Wells Fargo CEO Charlie Schaffer has signaled openness to a transformative deal, while Citi CEO Jane Fraser says the bank's focus is on organic growth, not mergers and acquisitions. We'll see. We'll follow that as they further consolidate the banking industry here in America. Global food prices will ultimately rise by 12% this year, according to a new study released by Oxford Economics. Yeah, I believe it's going to be even higher than that. Rice prices have surged over 47+% since the beginning of the Iran war this year. And see right there, part of the third and fourth worlders, in large part, a bunch of them rely on rice for their daily sustenance for survival here now. Part of the engineered famine. Beef prices are soaring. The average pound of ground beef hit a record $6.89 in July, up 83+% from its 2017 low, and above $6 for the first time in history. Steaks now average $13.6 a pound, up 10% year over year. The root cause is a supply backdrop that's the tightest in 3 generations. The U.S. cattle herd has shrunk to 86.2 million head, the smallest since 1951, and the U.S. just imported a record 2.5 million metric tons of foreign beef, the most in at least 65 years, to fill the gap. America first, baby. With the USDA not expecting the herd to recover until 2028, relief is years away. Red meat prices are utterly insane. You can see right here. It's a bad sign when all of our charts, the line goes vertical all about the same time. Thanks a lot there, you bastards. You can see right there, Trump's America First agenda, U.S. imports, record amount of farm beef. Have your goy slop, Snow. Have your goy lunch here. If you're listening out there, Snow, this one's for you. Protein-rich cookies made from PET plastic and crop waste are taking shape as engineered yeasts turn broken down trash into edible proteins, fats, acids, and even vanilla flavoring. I remember that report years ago now, probably like 15 years ago. They were feeding basically slave workers in China fake rice, fake plastic rice, and that caused a revolt. And so maybe, yeah, we won't have a revolt here. There you go. Engineered yeasts help turn PET plastic and crop waste into protein-rich cookies. Here is your, by the American Chemical Society. My God, there's your goy slop, if ever there was goy slop. Yeah, I'm not going to read the details how they go about doing this. And of course, you'll have no labeling here in America and just eat your goy slop. You know what I mean? Wowzers. Truly disgusting. I'll post a link at Weaponized News Substack. Everybody can take a look there. Well, House Oversight dims, so it is partisan. Posted this clip, though. While Trump and his friends make billions off of the presidency, Americans are struggling to afford basic necessities. I can't argue with that. Let's watch this propaganda from House Oversight dims.
You know, there's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about, affordability.
Every dollar you have has to go to gas, groceries, bills, rent. I'm getting paid Friday, and Thursday I'll be broke.
The word affordability is a con job by the Democrats.
I was hoping that
gas was gonna go down so I could do something.
When you have to pay a little bit more, you're at $4. It's okay. I'll never apologize. I did the right thing.
Start thinking of the little people instead of the rich people.
They use the word affordability. It's a Democrat hoax. Suddenly use the word affordability, a word they just used it. Somebody gave it to them. Affordability is a Democrat scam.
You just can't afford to breathe at this point.
Yeah, it's not affordability crisis. It's called inflation. Both parties are responsible here. Repeal the Federal Reserve Act, Congress. Bring back sound money in this madness of the fiat debt-based monetary system. It's going to end on its own here at the time of the bankers' choosing. Be aware where we're at. All these red flags on the charts are going like this, almost straight vertical. It's not good. Trump posts this out of Iran earlier today. Iran parliament speaker, we are hungry. We cannot survive. Reposting propaganda out of Newsmax there. And then Parliamentary Speaker Golliboff's reply to Trump, as they do enjoy their meme wars here. Make America hungry again. You can't cover up defeats with false claims. Make America hungry again. 47 million Americans face hunger every day. 1 in 8 Americans struggle with hunger. 16 million children in the U.S. go hungry every day. Food insecurity exists in every country, in every county in America. Golliboff meme there. And then finally, the U.S. now has just 41 days of crude oil inventory left, the lowest level in half a century. Iran says it will soon squeeze much harder. Another one of these vertical charts. This one going down, but you can see right there. Wowzers, going straight down there. All right, what is the national average for the price of a gallon of gasoline? We're at $4.10 today, according to AAA. You can see right there. $4.10 on average price for a gallon of gasoline here in America. Brown University. Let's take a look at their Iran war energy cost tracker. Again, the Iran war starting on February 28, 2026. You can see right here, we're up to $90.8 billion. Total consumer burden since the beginning of the Iran war. And the per household cost burden since the beginning of the Iran war, spread across both gasoline and diesel, $693.05. You can see right there. They're just killing us every which way. But hey, U.S. Central Command reminds us American forces aboard USS George H.W. Bush remain vigilant and ready both day and night during enforcement of the U.S. blockade against Iran. As of today, August 24th, CENTCOM forces have redirected 71 commercial vessels, disabled 3, and boarded 2 to ensure compliance. More than 40 vessels supporting humanitarian aid have been allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Quite literally insane Oil analyst Rory Johnston explains why a shortage of diesel, not crude oil, is the bigger economic threat to the world right now. Diesel hits everything. It hits shipping, it hits industry, it hits your Amazon deliveries. Diesel crack spreads, premium over crude, have surged to nearly $100 a barrel, about 5 times normal levels, amid shrinking Middle East production and amid Ukrainian strikes on Russian refineries, which push oil refined product exports to their lowest levels since the collapse of the Soviet Union. As we continue to report, this diesel crack spread over $100 a barrel, and it will be passed on to everything in the economy here now, essentially. Less than 20 vessels transit the Strait of Hormuz over the weekend. Report out of the Cradle. Fewer than 20 commodity vessels passed through the Strait of Hormuz over the weekend, according to shipping data released earlier today by Kepler Shipping Data tracking firm. It's wide open for business, Trump has told us, as it was this weekend with 21 vessels transiting the strait. Completely and utterly ridiculous. The Houthis are at war with Saudi Arabia. Ansarallah says it struck the Saudi oil tanker Amzan with a ballistic missile off of Yamba in the northern Red Sea, declaring the attack part of its maritime blockade on Saudi Arabia and its blockade for blockade campaign. This dude, pissed off Houthi dude, made that announcement earlier today. Iran blacklists 45 vessels for violating Hormuz regulations. Again, it's both sides, right? America and Iran both standing there with guns pointed at those who dare to transit the Strait of Hormuz faces. It's a rough neighborhood over there. Iran announced yesterday that it has blacklisted nearly 24 tankers that it said violated its new regulations in the Strait of Hormuz, warning that it will continue to take action against ships failing to adhere to demands of its naval forces. How can that be? They don't even have a navy. Trump has told us numerous times, we, America, control the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know where the Iran gets thinking they control the Strait of Hormuz. The 45 vessels designated by Tehran could be fined, captured, or have their cargoes confiscated, said the Persian Gulf Strait Authority. Iran announces discovery of massive new gas field, and we're bringing them American democracy. So don't worry, Iran, we're getting there. Iran said yesterday that it discovered a new gas field in the country's waters worth over 200 billion cubic meters, coinciding with U.S. aardvark land threats to attack Iranian infrastructure and following the announcement of Washington's plans for economic war against Iran. Iran has discovered more than 7.5 trillion cubic feet, 212.4 billion cubic meters of natural gas in a field in southern Fars province. Oil Minister Mohsen Pakajed said. Pakajed said that based on the estimated recovery rate, around 5,700 billion cubic feet of gas could be extracted from the field. He said the field's recoverable reserves are enough to supply one phase of the South Pars gas field for approximately 15 years. He described the new discovered resource as sweet gas, which he said would help lower development and operational costs. The field also holds substantial quantities of gas compensates, which alongside the value of its gas reserves could create tens of billions of dollars in additional wealth for Iran, the minister said. Well, we got to bomb the hell out of that, obviously. On to Ukraine, Russia, war news. In the war, man, it's gone on long enough. It's quite horrific. Casualties, death tolls on both sides, but hell. Former Trump Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg, he says time to start drafting up the females there out of Ukraine. He says complete maniac, right? He says, I believe women should be mobilized into the military because they fight every bit as well as men. That's very, feminist of them there. But they're like trying to wipe out all of Ukraine. And so there will be no Ukrainians left if they have their way here. If they implement this policy of now calling to draft Ukrainian females into combat service to fight on the front lines of the meat grinder there, known as Russia-Ukraine war front lines. Britain now. Essentially, Russia's at war with Britain. Britain will support Ukraine's long-range missile production by allowing MBDA to share classified information on British components used in the Scalp cruise missiles production. Prime Minister Burnham said earlier today upon a visit to Ukraine. They're upping the ante here. Burham, this clown, him, right? UK Prime Minister. He said the clear message to Putin should be that Ukraine will never give up territory that Russia cannot win on the battlefield, and negotiations must start from the line of contact. Finnish President Stubb, this dude, he talks mad shit on Russia as well as we continue to report. He said, we need to increase Ukraine's capacity for deep strikes, whether with drones, missiles. The reason is very simple. It increases the cost of the war for Russia. 65% of the Russian population now wants to end this war, and hitting logistics centers like Wildberries increases it by an additional 10%. Do you think this is sensible military strategy for Ukraine? My answer is yes, it certainly is. This is the only way we're going to get peace negotiations on the table, by blowing up Russian Amazon logistics and warehouse hubs there. Wildberries, which is the equivalent to Russia's Amazon, and blowing up large sections of their petroleum refinery capabilities as well. It may work. Is this tactic going to work to cause the Russian population to revolt against the Putin regime there in Moscow? I don't know. That's some of the thinking behind these strategies. It hasn't worked so far, but that's what they're hoping for. Ukrainian drones targeted 3 Azon logistics hubs across Russia overnight in the last 24 hours. The strikes come amid a broader series of attacks on major Russian distribution centers, including sites operated by Ozon and rival retailer Wildberries. So now they're going after the other one, Ozon, as well. Here's some of the footage of these kamikaze drones striking these Just think of them akin to Amazon here in America. So that's like, I don't know, Iran or whoever the hell, Canada, I guess now. Whoever flying their kamikaze drone into an Amazon warehouse, that's the equivalent would be here for us in America. Yeah, it's an ongoing campaign for the last month here now as we continue to report. Zelensky on long-range capabilities are cutting into Russian revenue, says thousands of our deep strikes have already been seen by Moscow, Tula, Ryazan, Olyan, Omsk, and dozens of other locations where Ukrainian justice has already reached. Russia must see more of this justice. The war there is escalating quite a bit. Zelensky revealed a joint peace framework developed with Trump envoys Kushner and Witkoff, consolidated on one page, covering 3 points. 3 points. We heard this for almost the whole war. Yeah, there's peace talks. And then we bombed the hell out of some civilian infrastructure. Anyhow, the 3 points here now. Zelensky claims a ceasefire as the central element, a U.S. proposed buffer zone where both sides take equal steps back, creating a free economic zone administered by a third party, BlackRock, a framework defining what the EU and NATO would do alongside Ukraine's commitments. He noted the U.S. side has additional ideas not yet shared with Ukraine. It's something. They're throwing it out there. They're throwing out quite a bit, and still no peace. More from Zelensky to Putin. He put out a video message. I'll just give you the summation readout. There he is in the video message. He said, Putin hopes that we are tired. We know that he is mortal. He never understood us, and now he will not have time to. You wanted to take all of Ukraine, all our land. Instead, you lost your oil refineries, your fleet, your revenues, and an entire generation that you sent into the meat grinder. You wanted us to disappear from the map. Now you are disappearing from the international agenda of the future civilization. For 27 years, the ruler of Russia has been talking about greatness while Russia stands in lines for gasoline. Putin said, and here's Putin. I'll spare you the English translation. I'll just read you the summation. Putin said, strikes against civilian, effectively unprotected facilities, and what is especially important, against civilians, cause economic damage to our country and lead to losses. The loss of every person is always a tragedy for the entire country. We know very well that the Nazis of the Second World War and the neo-Nazis today experienced, and judging by everything, still experience a particular satisfaction, even pleasure, in committing such crimes. And we see that these criminal acts continue. The Kremlin said Britain is taking part in the war against Russia on the side of Ukraine. Britain is systematically and regularly adding fuel to the fire of the conflict in Ukraine and working to undermine the peace process. Well, thanks a lot there, big brother. You're helping the world out. More out of the Kremlin. They say the Ukrainian authorities have opened Pandora's box, are feeling the consequences of their actions every night, and will continue to do so. It's horrific. It needs to end. It needs to end as they're escalating attacks on each other's civilian infrastructure. Secretary of War Hegseth earlier today
on redundancy or bureaucracy or waste, it's an insult to you, the taxpayer, and it's a theft from warfighters. This is a new department with a new focus on our core mission, where we're restoring the warrior ethos, and that means a focus, an unrelenting, uncompromising focus on lethality. It means no more DEI. It means no more trannies, just training.
No more trannies, just training? Count me out, bro. In the midst of our humanitarian duties, helping out Venezuela, Colombia, affected by earthquakes, U.S. Southern Command's gone back to extrajudicial assassinations, murder. So back to murder from U.S. Southern Command, the very quiet drug war building out the greater North America. They whacked another fishing boat. Narco terrorists. Well, arrest them, charge them, give them their due process, don't murder them. Another murder here reported by U.S. Southern Command. This operation is a clear and decisive reminder that Southcom is taking the fight directly to the cartels. Yesterday, under Southcom Commander General Francis L. Donovan's direction, Joint Task Force Western Hemisphere executed a lethal kinetic strike on a low-profile vessel operating along established narco trafficking routes in the Eastern Pacific. Confirmed intelligence revealed the vessel's active involvement in narco trafficking. The operation killed 2 narco terrorists. Well, here's that killing the narco terrorists and destroying the evidence. It'd be nice if, you provided some evidence rather than just U.S. Southern Command's word. We love you and trust you, bro, but man, the bodies are stacking up here. Boom. What are we even at? We're close to 200 murders here now with no due process out of U.S. Southern Command. Colombia, now a puppet Zionist state. Colombia will receive 3 MQ-9A Reaper drones on loan from the United States and plans to buy a 4th with its own funds, marking the first armed long-endurance drone capability in the region. The deal follows Colombia joining the United States-led America's Counter Cartel Coalition as its 19th member under new President Espriella, who has sharply reversed his predecessor Petro's war policies. Colombia offered to host the coalition's coordination center. Why? Why, might you ask? Well, this is why.
That is why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America.
They're building it right now. Here's former Colombian President Petro restoring relations with Aardvarkland while Netanyahu is in power, applauds Gaza genocide. Well, yeah. said it here. Yeah. That's why they had to get rid of you, buddy. And now they got their Zionist puppet there. Investigative journalist, drop site correspondent, Ali Yunus is facing up to a year in prison in Jordan on national security charges and has been barred by Jordanian authorities from leaving the country over an alleged retweet of an article. They're extremely tyrannical, iron-fisted dictatorship there in Jordan. So that dude looking at a year in Jordan for a retweet. Syria and Aardvark land hold U.S.-mediated talks in Jordan. Syria and Aardvark land held high-level U.S.-mediated talks in Jordan yesterday aimed at reducing tensions following recent Aardvark land strikes on Syrian territory. Syria's state news agency, Sana, reported, citing a diplomatic source at the foreign ministry. According to Sana, the discussions focused on practical measures to stop Aardvark land strikes, arrests, and targeted operations, while also seeking to revive negotiations on a security agreement that could serve as a foundation for a broader future deal. The talks also addressed efforts to reduce tensions between Aardvark land and Turkey, as we covered last week in that attack on Syria. Iraq pushes back deadline for armed groups to hand over weapons. A senior Iraqi official yesterday appeared to push back the September 30th deadline for armed groups to surrender their weapons without explaining the change or setting a new date. They're trying to disarm the Hezbollah and other proxy militia Iranian groups in Iraq. And it doesn't look like they're going to be able to achieve that working with America, of course. We'll see. Will it cause a Iraqi civil war? We'll see. As the deadline of disarmament of these groups continues, and it is September 30th. So we'll keep tracking that story. Little Marco Rubio, on Secretary of State on Syria, said today, I'm formally rescinding Syria's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. So the former Al-Qaeda, ISIS head dude, Al-Jani there, now reformed, a good citizen, is leading Syria now out of the designation by the U.S. State Department as a sponsor of terrorism, a state sponsor of terrorism. This action unlocks new potential for Syria's economic revitalization and progress. The Trump administration continues to advance U.S. national security to achieve peace, prosperity, and security in the Middle East, and follow the Zionist agenda there. Oh, I added that part. Pardon me. And build out the Greater Aardvark Land Project. Oh, I added that part. Aardvark tourists, as they've now become known famously for, arson campaigns all over the place, from Patagonia to Crete to southern Lebanon. Literally everywhere they go, they catch the place on fire. Shocking, I know. Aardvark land tourists arrested over Crete wildfire, released on 10,000 euro bail. 35-year-old lit barbecue despite ban during extreme fire risk. 2 firefighters died battling Crete wildfires this summer. Yeah, who cares? It's Aardvark. Can do anything. His 3,000-year-old evil god told him so, right? Sure. Mock executions here now being staged in Iran of Trump and Milei Bibi Netanyahu, our 2 presidents of America. And remember, the Iranians had said that red flag is the red flag of vengeance now after the whacking of old man Khomeini there. Okay, a lot of reporting here. I guess we'll just do the readout of it. Just, they're going hog wild in southern Lebanon. That is the aardvarks bombing the hell out of the place. Ongoing demolition campaign here in southern Lebanon. Report out of the cradle. This is past 24 hours. I'll just blast through all these reports. Airstrike targeted the Ali al-Tahir area. A drone dropped a sound bomb on Montessori. Aardvark land forces carried out bulldozing operation in Halua. Aardvark forces in Qaim detonated several houses in the town's western neighborhood near Al-Mabarat schools. Multiple explosions were heard and smoke was seen rising from the area. The bodies of Hassim Shakar and Ahmed Ramani, both from Dair al-Zairani, were recovered in the Kafar Rahman after contact with them had previously been lost. So they've been killed, these two Lebanese youth, and a detonation was reported in Kafir Tabnit. Those two no longer with us. Tragically enough, it continues here. An Aardvark land mechanized force advanced toward the valley linking Haditha and Harris, where two D9 bulldozers reportedly carried out engineering and earth removing work. An Aardvark land detonation was reported in Majadal Zone. Aardvark forces opened fire around their movements in the area of Haditha Harris Valley as bulldozers continued operating in the area. Aardvark land drone dropped another sound bomb on Montessori. An Aardvark land detonation was reported in Abdu Makna area in Tibet. An Aardvark land drone dropped incendiary materials in Bet Nyan. Aardvark land warplanes carried out an airstrike on the outskirts of Halua. Aardvark land warplanes conducted two airstrikes targeting Montessori. And so it's just ongoing and ongoing. Here's some video of these attacks. There's some still images. And ongoing and ongoing. More attacks in southern Lebanon. A drone detonated in the Al-Ashrish area. Artillery shelling targeting the Wandi al-Saqai. Artillery shelling targeted the outskirts of Haula. A D9 bulldozer moved toward Al-Kahala between Harris and Hadatha. An artillery shell struck near an inhabited home between Harris and Haditha. Warplanes carried out airstrikes on Montessori. This is ongoing, right? So that's like the third, I believe, airstrikes on Montessori area in the past 24 hours here now. They're bombing the hell out of the place. You can see right here if we can get it to load up. Yeah, some of the, you can see right there in that video, they're bombing the hell out of the place. More images here. I believe this is Montessori. You can see right here. It's being claimed once again, white phosphorus being used in latest attack targeting Montessori. Crazy, man. Here's some video of this from Mint Press. Alleged white phosphorus used. It's illegal. It's a war crime. It's kind of Aardvarkland thing. Jeez Louise. Yeah, they're really hitting Montessori. Aardvarkland forces shelled Montessori and carried out demolition operations on the western outskirts of Mays al-Jabil, where military bulldozers destroyed a temporary school complex and explosives were brought in to prepare several homes for demolition. There's a little video of that. Big wave of attacks on Montessori. These are the worst people of all people in the whole world. Hassim Abdul Kahader, a relative of the 10-year-old Palestinian girl killed earlier today, said from the hospital where her body was transferred to, they were children playing with kites. They were just sitting there playing. They are killing children and striking them with F-16s. They're bombing refugee children in tents in Gaza. It's like, what do you even say? Here's dude saying that at the hospital. You can see they're bombing kids flying their kites, refugees in tents in Gaza. Aardvarkland kills 3 Palestinians in Gaza after kites cross border fence. The kids playing with kites, allegedly their kites crossed the border fence, causing this murder. What did she do to deserve to be killed? She was sitting and eating sweets. What a sin did this little girl commit? Her grandmother grieved. 8 Palestinians, including 2 children, have been killed in Aardvarkland attacks in the past 24 hours there in Gaza. They fire indiscriminately, one witness said. The, quote, anti-Netanyahu side of the Aardvarkland Politik, as they're set for an election there, October 27, he has said there will be no Palestinian state under him either. So there you go. There will be no vote harder there for genocide reform in aardvark land. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't matter. But hey, the UN and EU tell me there's a two-state solution still possible. So damn tragic. More videos of the blown up kids there with the kites. Yeah. Quite horrific. You can see that strike here from a distance. Again, that's a aardvark land strike on the Gaza Strip earlier today, killing 8 Palestinians, 2 children. Aardvark land bombs 2 mosques in Gaza as well. That was part of that attack. According to Gaza's Ministry of Health, 2 Palestinians were killed and 32 others injured in the past 24 hours with aardvark land attacks on the Gaza Strip. Since the so-called ceasefire, October 11, 2025, the Gaza Ministry of Health says 1,288 Palestinians have been killed, with 4,290 wounded and 813 bodies recovered from the rubble there. Aardvark land has attacked a critical water desalination plant. That was also part of this attack, and mosques there. Here's a graphic video showing the explosion. Wowzers. Quite horrific. Yeah, there's video of the dead kids. I won't show them here. Gaza's government media official said aardvark land has committed 4,379 violations of the ceasefire agreement since it took effect October 2025, with 315 days having passed since its implementation. According to the office, the aardvark land violations have resulted in the deaths of 1,286 Palestinians, injuries to 4,257 others, and the arrest of 180 people. It said 113 bodies have been recovered from the rubble, again, as we previously reported, while the remains of more than 8,000 Palestinians are still believed to be trapped beneath the rubble of their destroyed homes. The tragedy and genocide continues there in Gaza. Onto the occupied West Bank, Oldanin, aardvark land ambassador to the UN. This bastard, right? This dude. He says that we have historical biblical rights to the land, not occupied land, our land. Saying that the ultra-Zionist settlers in their own land, to leave their own land is a disgrace. We're here to stay, he said. Well, that's what Smotrich, Ben Gavir, has Bibi said that outright? Maybe not Bibi, but they have. Now he's saying it. They all say it. They all believe it. Here's an ultra-Zionist settler calling for wiping out all other religions in aardvark land.
What's your opinion about rebuilding the third temple over here? מה דעתך על בניית בית המקדש השלישי פה?
שחייבים לבנות זה כמה שיותר מהר.
He thinks that we should do it as quick as possible.
Why?
למה?
כי זה מצווה שמציבה את עם ישראל בכל מאז שנכנסנו לארץ בפעם הראשונה.
It's a commandment that God commanded on the people of Israel since they first entered the land.
But what about the Dome of the Rock?
You mean like the Massive Mosque?
Yeah.
מה לגבי המסגדים שבנו?
צריך לפוצץ אותם כמו שאתם...
Saying we should bomb them as quick as possible.
ובנוסף צריך גם לפוצץ את כל בתי עבודה זרה והמסגדים והכנסיות בארץ.
And on top of that, we should bomb all of the churches and mosques in all of Israel.
ארץ שלי שהשם נתן ליהודים, ולכן אין מקום לעמים ודתות אחרות.
It's a land that God gave to the Jewish people, so there's no place for other religions or nations.
Is there another way except bombing and killing?
יש דרך אחרת חוץ מלהפציץ ולהרוג משהו.
אפשר גם להציע להם בדרך יפה, לפרק את זה וללכת החוצה.
You can ask them nicely to take it down and f***
Seems reasonable there. And then finally, China says Palestine is a, quote, core issue for the Middle East. Chinese President Xi told Jordan's King Abdullah that the Palestinian question is, quote, a core issue for the Middle East during talks in Beijing, according to a summary carried by Chinese state radio and a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson. Xi pressed for a political solution, a revival of Aardvarkland Palestinian negotiations, and the swift establishment of an independent Palestinian state. Yeah, that's not going to happen. They're chasing that two-state solution, and it's just simply not going to happen with current Aardvarkland leadership coming or going. All right, latest headlines out of Iran International. U.S. wages economic war on Iran as Pakistan, Oman push diplomacy. Who speaks for Iran? More talk about Iranian establishment divide. Pakistan says Iran welcomed its mediation efforts with United States. Iran war pushes insurers to treat Saudi-linked ships as higher risks. Houthi deputy foreign minister warns region against joining U.S. sanctions on Iran. UN offers to facilitate fertilizer transfer through Strait of Hormuz. And then finally, headlines out of Al Jazeera will wrap up this Monday edition of Weaponized News. U.S. imposes new sanctions. We covered that. Sweeping new sanctions. Funeral held for Palestinian child shot dead by Aardvarkland forces in her family tent. They're bombing and shooting refugees in tents. That's all I got today. I did see Ruckus post in the chat. There's a boiler room tonight, I believe. Let me see. Did he post that? I think he said tonight. Yeah, he says special live boiler room tonight. So be sure to tune in to Boiler Room with Ruckus and Boiler Room crew. Let me wrap up this broadcast. Head over to the channels. Head over to the Odysee here now. Again, it always takes like 5 clicks here. And then my computer is running slow as well. 2 more clicks. And I shall be there to see if anyone's on Odysee. There are some people over there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on the Odysee. Shout out to John Huffman, Fat Bob. Let's see. Trump can build a Canadian border wall out of data centers up where it gets cold. Huffman always offering practical solutions there. Val, make a 4-box with plywood. Doug Ford, Chris Farley, Ford, the Bears, Fat Bob. That Mark Carney is really not Trump's friend. Oh, man. Crimea. When Russia, USA, Iran, China have too much oil, create fake wars, artificial scarcity, making huge profits of resources in abundance. Yeah, they play that game, but I believe they really are blowing up a bunch of petroleum refinery production facilities. I believe that's really happening. And of course they're rigging all the markets. Yeah. Fat Bob says, yeah, but there's no shortage of gold. Silver is a different matter, and in my humble opinion, remains the most undervalued asset of them all. I agree with you there, Fat Bob. I agree with you. Highland, shout out to Highland. All right, thank you guys for tuning in on the Odysee and chatting it up over there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on X, Bitchute, Substack, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. Let's head over to those chats again. Ruckus and Boiler Room crew are probably live now. Head over there and check them out. Shout out to Doug on the YouTube. Well, thank you, Doug. Doug says, my favorite news source. Thank you for your hard work, Sam. Well, thank you. And again, shout out to Mac. Keep Mac in your prayers. Over there, as regular viewer, Mac, I appreciate it. And I appreciate the Mac that gave his donation as well. So I do appreciate that, Mac. Thank you very much. And regular viewer, always in the chat, they're adjusting the schedule. And again, condolences there, Mac, for your mother passing. And everybody keep Mac in your prayers, please. All right. Says I managed to get reception in the cafeteria tonight because sometimes he gets Wi-Fi and sometimes he doesn't there. Let's see. BD says down with Aardvark land. Yeah, it's kind of a slow chat today over there. Using white phosphorus is not exactly a war crime unless it is being used to specifically target civilians. That's who they're targeting. They're targeting residential neighborhoods. So sad. Shout out to Good on the YouTube. Hoarding. They're hitting residential neighborhoods, and I think it's still you can't even use it in a war, can you? I don't think you're supposed to. I gotta look that up, but they're hitting residential neighborhoods. Thank you for tuning in, Mac, and your efforts and your reports. Tune in to I'll have to find it tomorrow. I don't have it pulled up. Mac does quite a few reports on the Substack. So I'll plug him tomorrow so you can follow Mac on the Substack. and tune in for his reports. All right, friends, as always, everybody do your own research, peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Monday evening. We'll be back here on Tuesday for more Weaponized News. Let's pray for peace